Welcome to This Week in Hastings Headline History, where we take a look back at what was making news in Hastings, Florida over a century ago. These are stories directly out of the pages of the Hastings Herald, which was published weekly in the early 1900s. So sit back and enjoy as I share with you a few of the stories from this week in 1919. This week's newspaper began with a front-page message from the staff of the Herald on being thankful this Thanksgiving. Let us bow again in thankful reverence in commemoration of that sturdy and faithful old bark which bore our pilgrim fathers and mothers over the billowy storm-tossed waves and landed them safely upon Plymouth Rock on that blissful yet chill November day. Yea, let us give thanks, because if it had not been for that historical old craft and those who mentored it across the deep, we could not raise our voice today and sing, "My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing." Had you ever thought of that? It's to them that we owe the praise for our great land of freedom, riches, happiness, and plenty. It's to them that the poet has tried time and time again in vain to express our debt of gratitude. And because of them, we are today surrounded with all the luxury that any man could ask for. Look at our fertile fields of fruit and grain. Look at our great cities of commerce and industry. Look at our country towns and villages too in their dreams of idealism and truth. Look at our great institutions, our schools and churches. What other countries shout religion so free? Look again. History proudly repeats that our great and wonderful country has never yet suffered defeat. Those old pages also state that ours has always been a country of opportunity. It also proclaims that ours has always stood for the right, and that God has smiled down upon us and those who gave us our freedom and right and blessed us all 100-fold. So let us give thanks to them on this blissful Thanksgiving Day. In other news in the paper, burglar shot by watchman of Cordova stores. Desperately wounded by C.C. Clifton, the night watchman for the stores in the Cordova block, Bob Venardi, a would-be burglar, is in the East Coast Hospital, but with a slim chance for recovery. And Mr. Clifton has a slight puncture in his chest inflicted by a bullet fired by Venardi. While making his rounds at the rear of the Cordova building about 10 o'clock last night, Mr. Clifton observed a man sneaking along looking for an opening through which he could enter one of the stores. He called to the man and demanded to know what he was doing there. The man approached him and stated that he was looking for a place to sleep. Mr. Clifton ordered him to leave the yard where he was lurking, whereupon the prowler pressed a pistol hard against Mr. Clifton's chest and fired. He turned to flee, but Mr. Clifton's gun was in action before the man had taken a dozen steps. 4 times the night watchman's pistol barked, and 2 of its missiles found their mark, one bullet passing under the right arm into the would-be murderer's body. The other entered his back near the right side. The wounded man did not halt, but continued to flee and succeeded in getting to Palm Row, where he was found a little while later by police officer Walter Masters, who was summoned by a phone message from one of the residents of Palm Row who advised him of the shooting. Mr. Clifton's injuries were very trivial, the bullet having broken through the skin, penetrating no further. Dr. Seegers removed the bullet with his fingers. Mr. Clifton probably owes his life to the fact that the muzzle of the burglar's pistol was pressed so firmly against him that the force of the discharge was greatly reduced, and this with the heavy overcoat which acted as a shield prevented it from inflicting a serious wound. Mr. Clifton was sent to his home by the doctor, and he is but slightly worse for his thrilling experience. Child labor shows a big fall-off. Child labor in the United States has decreased more than 40% since the child labor tax provision of the Revenue Act went into effect April 25th last. This act levied a tax of 10% on the net earnings of plants employing children under 14 years or between 14 and 16 for more than 8 hours in the production of commodities entering interstate commerce. The greatest decrease has occurred in the cotton mill industry of the southern states, where it was said more than 85% of the mills now are operating on a basis that exempts them from the child labor tax. Marked reduction in child labor was also reported in the coal mining and canning industries. Received supply of sugar. J.B. Hughes & Company were the first merchants here to secure a supply of sugar, but their supply is so limited that they are obliged to sell to individual customers no more than 1 pound. It was rumored that the sugar shortage is nearing an end, and the Residency will doubtless learn of this fact with much pleasure. To Green Cove Springs. J.A. and M.N. Sanchez returned last Monday from Green Cove Springs, where they took a load of rice to be hulled and cleaned. They state it is the finest yet seen. Some were under the impression that the mill at Green Cove was not capable of turning out good work. But Mr. Sanchez says it is fully equipped and does the work in an efficient manner. To be able to get work done there, booking dates must be secured for future business. $75 million to be raised in the South. Every general interest fostered by Southern Baptists will be strengthened and enlarged through the success of the Baptist 75 Million campaign, which is now well underway and which will reach its climax in the final drive to secure this sum in cash and subscriptions during the 8 days of November 30th through December 7th. A period of 5 years will be provided for the final payment of the subscriptions, but for the campaign to succeed, the sum of $75 million must be subscribed within the 8 days. Many have expressed the belief that the subscriptions will run up to $100 million. Florida alone is expected to raise $1 million of the total. The money will go to missionary work, more Baptist schools, seminaries, hospital services, and more. From the editorial section. This week, we have a Thanksgiving editorial. An editorial that is not overly thankful about the progress that's been made in the year since the ending of World War I. It's titled Thanksgiving Day, 1919. Looking back upon Thanksgiving Day of last year, when the hearts of all were full of a great rejoicing, which came with the cessation of hostilities, we realize just how far from our hopes and ideals the accomplishments of 12 months have been. On the day of Thanksgiving 1918, we visualized a speedy peace, a world at rest, the brotherhood of nations and quietness and content within our own borders. Nothing could be farther from the dream than the reality the months have brought. And yet, the disturbances that have racked and are still harassing industrial life will have their solution sooner or later and cannot help but build a foundation for a firmer, better condition of things, a higher standard of living for the great masses of the people. The fine spirit of international unity, though strained now with the reaction from war conditions, will but strengthen with the passing of time and will bring about the blessings of world fellowship. The beginning made in the direction for this work that has been done, we can be deeply, humbly grateful. That is world comradeship, world sympathy. That is to prevent future bloodshed and carnage. So now, when there is so much trouble at home and abroad, with nations and people torn by 1,000 dissensions, we can yet see the thing that is to be, the tremendous readjustment that is to come. Above our words of praise and thanksgiving for the good things that have come to us nationally and individually, should be heard our petition for world fellowship, for the universal comradeship that is to bind the peoples of the earth together in a common cause, that of Christian love, forbearance, and understanding. Not for ourselves alone, but for others, is our Thanksgiving prayer. I hope you enjoyed this week's edition of Hastings Headline History. This podcast was brought to you by Presenting the Past, bringing history back to the present through historic presentations and the sale of treasures from days gone by. This episode was written and produced by me, Michelle Murillo, with the aid of vintage copies of the Hastings Herald. Now it's time for this week's musical memory, when we listen back to a song that everyone was listening to over 100 years ago. This week's musical memory was on the charts in 1919. The artist is Bert Williams. Bert was a well-known vaudeville-era performer and broke through a lot of boundaries of the time. The Jamaican-born artist was the best-selling black recording artist before 1920. He was the first black American to have a leading role on Broadway. He was also the first black man to have a leading role in a film, Darktown Jubilee, in 1914. Here's Bert Williams singing his 1919 hit, Everybody Wants a Key to My Cellar.
Down in my cellar, down in my cellar, I've been changing everything around. I got a secret hidden there, I've got it with my life. There's only one mistake I made. I told it to my wife. Now everybody wants a key to my cellar. My cellar, my cellar. Oh, who never even gave me a tumble. Even perfect strangers are beginning to grumble, 'cause they all want the key to open my cellar. I'd like to see 'em get one, let 'em try. You can have my money, yes sir. Take my car, take my wife if you want to go that far. My cellar if the whole darn world goes dry. Everybody wants the key to my cellar, my cellar, my cellar. Folks who never even gave me a tumble, even perfect strangers are beginning to grumble, 'cause they all want the key to open my cellar. I'd like to see 'em get one, let 'em try. Discharge all the servants, I don't trust a soul. Never mind the furnace, I can shovel all the coal. But nix on a key to open my cellar. I'll be wet, yes sir, when they are dry.